someone was saying religion went from being spiritual and focused on your connection with God and trying to be a good person with a good moral compass to I'm right, you're wrong.
/ business.
And welcome to another episode of
Sprinkles and Spice.
And everything
Disappointing your family. Shame on you.
Shame
on your cow.
Shame on you and your entire family.
Your clan. You've brought shame on the nation.
So obviously in this episode, we're going to be talking about cultural shame.
Or also known as aib.
Aib. I think a lot of people are gonna relate.
I think every human being, like, it doesn't matter what culture you come from,
honestly,
is gonna relate to being
but
shamed.
especially like in Arab culture, like the word aib
is used for everything.
Is used for literally everything, and it has
finish your food. Otherwise, it's aib. You have to finish your food.
When you go to people's house, aib, you have to eat their food.
Aib, you have to take your shoes off. And then when they give you something, you have to take it.
Yeah. Like if someone offers you something and you actually want it, but you're like, you say no because like you're shy.
Yeah.
That's like
aib.
It's
rude.
Yeah.
But also if you like something and you want it and someone else wants it, you better not say you want it because it's aib. First of all, I just want to talk about, I can't believe we're 5 episodes in. I never thought
we'd make it.
You never thought we'd make it here. You're probably like, wow, how are they still here?
Mom.
Mom.
Are you still listening, Mom?
Is it your mom?
Mom, you need to stop listening.
Wait, Mom, if you hear this, please, I love you, but you know,
stop listening.
Just stop.
Just stop.
It's not your episode. It's not your episode. If you're not my mom and you want to send this to your mom, though, please feel free. I just don't want problems. I'm trying to eat. Trying to keep living for free.
Do you want to get into it?
I think we have to.
Do you want to start with
I have to stop talking about my mom right now.
Let's start with basically understanding cultural shame, or in our case, aib.
Yeah.
The word aib, and basically its impact, how it affects our identity,
our society,
our
friends, our peers,
mental health. I think it has a huge impact on so many things. Basically, I think the word aib encompasses like so many things, and we have like things like honor and reputation,
or عاداتنا
وتقاليد,
which translates literally to our habits and our traditions.
Yeah. So cultural traditions. I just want to do like a quick disclaimer. So we are not here to bash the culture. We really are all for the culture. For the culture. I'm doing it for the culture.
We are third culture kids, you know, like
but that's the thing.
We were raised at home in our culture and outside in another culture. And I think that's why that sense of that word aib, I think it hits us harder than people maybe who are raised here, because for us, we can sit there and be like, but why? You know?
Yeah. Not just that. I feel like people feel the need to school you.
Oh yeah.
Because they feel like, oh, she doesn't know better because she's foreign.
Yeah,
she's foreign. You know.
But then also in another sense, what's aib for someone that lived outside or like me that's like half Kuwaiti?
Yeah.
Is like I can get away with more things than someone that's full Kuwait that lived here the whole time. So
that's so true.
aib also affects me differently than it does them. And my full Kuwaiti friends who've lived here will say like, oh no, it's fine because you're a halfie and you've lived outside, and you know, that must be devastating for them.
Or I do agree with you. Like that's I feel like it's selective, and I don't know what the criteria is.
I don't either.
I don't think anyone knows what the criteria is.
I don't even think the people saying aib all day know.
Yeah.
It's we pick and choose what's aib and what's not.
Yeah, but let's start with basically understanding cultural shame. I think the first point that we have here is honor and reputation, which basically, because obviously in our like being Arab, your family name and your family's reputation.
Your clan, basically.
Your clan, basically, is a very important thing.
Yeah.
And it pretty much, like, I think it defines your status.
Your status, and it also dictates, I think, your destiny in a way. You know,
Yeah.
if you have a certain name, you will have access to a different life, to different like benefits. You know, you'll get a job easier, you'll get better marriage prospects. Like you get a lot of benefits from having a certain name in certain societies,
or a certain association with certain family names.
Yeah.
Because of that, there is a certain pressure on individuals to conform to certain
to not bring
behaviors
shame to the family name.
Exactly. Because like you're not just bringing shame to yourself, like they see it as like you're bringing shame to the entire family
or clan.
Yeah. And then we have obviously modesty and body image. So we're expected to basically conform to a certain
Standard.
dress code, or like you said, like a standard, and even behavior.
Yeah.
I think
The way you sit, the way you compose
the way you
yourself.
sit, yeah, as a woman, you're not supposed to do certain things.
Your voice shouldn't be too loud. And you know, I don't know if this is a thing for you, but I've definitely heard people here say like, oh, you can't laugh too loud. It's
I was just gonna say, yeah. Like I was always like, when I was younger, I remember my family would be like, your laugh is too loud. Like they had a phrase for it. They call it ضحكة رقاصة, which is
I've heard that.
You've heard that? How do we explain that in English?
Essentially like a belly dancer's laugh.
And obviously and like a belly dancer
in a derogatory term.
Exactly.
Not in like the talented belly dancers that we know of.
But I was like, I'll take it. And they're like, no, it's not a good thing. I'm like, thank you.
So I was like, oh my God, really? My dream. That's what I've been trying to do the whole time.
And so like, imagine like I had to think about when I laugh, like it's so annoying. Like I don't have to think about these things. And then
I think modesty and body image, I think it probably affects women more than men, because also, you know, if you have a certain body type, if you're a bit thicker, curvier, and you wear something that's a bit tighter in here, and in general, I think it's more aib. But someone that's like more of a stick, you know, like not much curve, she can get away with it. She can get away with it. It's fine. Because, you know, there's less to look at. But it's not really her fault. Yeah.
And I feel like I just don't get how like the way I dress is gonna bring shame to my family. Like I don't get that. Like
it's such an exaggeration, because
it's too much.
I'm not responsible for people's assumptions on me based on what I'm wearing. I'm not saying walk around complete, you know, buck naked.
Obviously, we're not saying
reason,
that.
I don't.
And then it's like if someone's like more modest, then they're an angel. They can do no wrong. And guys, like,
and we all know that's not true.
That's not true. Like, I'm not saying like don't dress modestly, but like let's
dress
not
the way you want to dress
exactly.
And we're not going to assume who you are.
Just don't make assumptions. Exactly. And then we have obviously gender-based shame.
Yes.
So basically, men have certain roles, women have certain roles,
and you can't deviate.
You can't deviate, especially in our culture. I think we have very distinct.
We don't have stay-at-home dads. We have very distinct roles.
Yeah.
But stay-at-home dads don't exist.
Yeah.
When you said we have very distinct, I was like, oh my God, I've never met a stay-at-home dad here.
Yeah.
Have you?
I don't think so. No. And even like, like, you know, when certain dads, like they would help the moms with certain things, and then people would be like, why is he doing that? Oh, she has him whipped, and she's like the man of the family. She wears the pants. A man doesn't do the dishes. A man shouldn't help around with the housework. A man shouldn't do that. And a woman has to do certain things. So obviously, like, if we deviate from those, then it's aib.
Yeah, it's like aib. It's not acceptable. And I think also there's not just society. I think the mother-in-law would say aib to the daughter-in-law if she sees her son doing something that she does not deem as like normal. Like by the standards of the society, you know, like this is the cultural gender norm. Yeah. And a man should not like, oh, my son brought you the tea, or like my son cooked, or my son did the you know, I think for men, the gender roles might be stricter than the women.
I'm sorry, I'm smiling because you said mother-in-law and I got flashbacks of my ex-mother-in-law.
Please share. What did that happen?
Like she did, I remember she used to talk to my ex-husband about the way I dress, because like, you know, my family didn't raise me, and now she wants to raise me like, woman, back off. Okay. So she used to talk about the way I dressed, my makeup, my nail polish, all that stuff.
You can't put nail polish on.
I can't put nail.
Can't.
Imagine. Oh my God. Can I say the story? I don't know if this is related, but basically my mom, it was like in the beginning of our marriage, she bought us, or she decided to like gift us a trip to Umrah, to go to Mecca. And
I don't know why I'm laughing.
it was sweet. I liked it. So she gifted me and my ex-husband, like, you know, this fully paid trip to Umrah. And then
it's a nice gift.
It's a really nice gift. And then she goes to my ex-husband and she's like, tell your wife that she needs to wear a abaya and she cannot have nail polish on and she can't do her makeup and she can't do this and she can't do that. And I was like, and I told him, I was like, does your mom think I don't have a family? Does she not think I have a mom who's taught me this stuff? Does she want to teach me how to pray all over again?
Does she want to teach you how to exist?
Like, actually,
like how to brush your teeth?
Yeah,
how to wash your face?
Pretty much. And so I think because he came from that background, like, yeah, I feel like when his dad came to visit, there was this expectation, like me as the wife, I had to cook, I had to clean. They literally did not even pick up a tissue. Yeah. I swear to God, they would leave their dirty tissues on the kitchen counter.
Just for you to pick up.
Just for me to pick up and clean. And I used to cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Imagine me. Oh, I was domesticated. Can you imagine that?
No, because I've never seen you do. I've never even seen you cook. You allegedly.
I can whip some mean dishes in the kitchen. Allegedly. I just don't like doing it. Yeah, honestly, I can be domesticated, but I prefer not to. What does Beyonce say? What is she's like, only, what is it? Only the radio can play me. No, she's like, only a real one can tame me and only the radio can play me.
Ooh. Only people listening to this podcast can play her because you're
get it?
Yeah, it's not funny.
And then the next one we have is
cultural and religious practices.
Yes. So obviously, but here's the thing. You know what I find? I feel like a lot of people confuse culture with religion.
100%. Yeah,
I saw you. Yeah. You were like, yes.
I was like,
yeah, right. So a lot of things. I honestly, I feel like our religion is a lot more lenient and relaxed than people.
Okay, hold up. Disclaimer: don't kill us.
Don't kill us. These are our personal views.
This is all allegedly. This is all in my opinion,
and I'm entitled to it.
Yeah.
Let's get that clear.
Let them know.
We don't.
I want peace. I've never said that.
Salam. My personal opinion is that I feel like people do not differentiate between culture and religion,
and they think that everything is religion related. Even
with the religion, I feel like there's a lot of room for error and misinterpretation.
I think religion is a journey anyways, right? So we go through like phases. It comes in waves. Like sometimes you connect to a certain verse, sometimes you connect to a whole other one. You know, I think, and it's very personal. You're the one reading it, you're the one understanding it. It depends on your journey. I don't understand why everyone has to come in and say, "Hey,"
and exactly, and like interfere.
And our religion does not allow this. And who are you?
And
are you paying my rent? Are you paying my rent?
Exactly.
Are you paying my rent?
If they don't pay your rent, pay them no mind. I was watching this TED Talk like a really long time ago, and I wish I could find it, but someone was saying religion went from being spiritual and focused on your connection with God and trying to be a good person with a good moral compass to I'm right, you're wrong.
/ business,
right?
Yeah.
And it's like
religion conversations are like no longer conversations or arguments.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, you disagree with me. Like, let's say I'm convinced that this is okay. You disagree. Okay, but are you sleeping in my grave? I am going to face God alone. Yeah. It's me and Allah alone. You're not going to be like judged with me. It's not going to be like there's no debate. A panel.
The jury.
You're not part of it. And also, like, how about you just focus on yourself?
Yeah, you do you, boo boo.
You do you, boo. Because that's the thing. I feel like a lot of people focus on the shallow part, like the aib part of it, like how you dress, how you act, how whatever. But what about your moral compass? Instead of focusing on being nice, on being good people, on being generous, on forgiving, on trying not to judge, because also part of our religion is not to pass judgment
a big part
on people, but you know, instead we choose
judge
to shame
and point fingers
and shame.
And honestly, let's face it, like, we love to argue and to fight one another on things, and I think we completely miss the point. The point is to just do your best.
Yes.
And help others do their best. And if you know what, others don't agree, that's their choice.
Exactly.
Because all of this is, at the end of the day, a choice. You know?
Exactly.
It's your choice to practice the way you want to practice.
As long as I'm not harming anyone.
Or yourself.
Or myself. Who are you to tell me how to live my life?
And if someone feels like they're, you know, entitled to it, and I think usually this is more like families and like maybe your close community that feel entitled to say what's right and what's wrong. Like, I do want to validate the people that are still at home, still growing up with that, still dealing with that. I think you just need to learn to like let it in through one ear and out the other. And it's incredibly difficult for some people.
It's hard. It's really hard.
I grew up in a really relaxed environment, so I can't speak on that.
Yeah.
But it'll eat you alive otherwise.
Yeah. I mean, we can go into that later, but yeah, definitely I feel like there are certain things
because it's always at home,
but it's not easy.
But
like, you have to
the
start.
The worst of it, I think, is at home. You know,
for sure,
because it's what you're drilled into every single day.
Yeah. And then obviously we have the family and community expectations. So you have to get married at a certain age or marry into a certain family.
And you have to marry your own background as well.
Exactly.
There's definitely a push for that. I think our generation is more relaxed.
Yeah, but I still see like a big number of people who are still...
Well, all the Kuwaiti girls at my work, I asked all of them that I chat to. And this is like maybe 8 girls that are still single. And they're all in their 20s or 30s. And I asked every single one, would you only marry a Kuwaiti man? And they all said yes. And I said, why? And they all said, well, my family wouldn't accept anything else.
Yeah.
And I said, did you meet anyone that you connected with? And they said no. I'm not saying they're not going to find anyone, but why are you limiting yourself? Why is it taib to marry someone that's not from the same background as you?
I mean, it's definitely more normalized for men to marry non-Kuwaiti or foreign. But I feel like I've been seeing more Kuwaiti girls who are... way more than back in the day, because now I think it's a little more acceptable and relaxed. But I have seen a lot of Kuwaiti girls who have married foreign men.
But they can't live in Kuwait because...
I mean, that's the thing.
Society shames them, one. The kids won't have their nationality. That's a whole other conversation.
I mean, the shame even goes as deep as like governmental...
Yeah, that's the thing, is they won't give you the same benefits.
Yeah.
That is insane to me.
Well, that's a story for another day.
Yeah, for sure.
But basically, like, I feel like all these things eventually make you feel like alienated. They really do affect your identity. They affect like the way you express yourself. Like, living in shame is not fun, because you're constantly like in fear of being like labeled immoral. Or like...
And you don't want, I mean, let's face it, so we're saying, oh, you know, in and ear out the other, but let's face it, people will alienate you sometimes here.
Yeah.
If you don't look or you don't act or you don't say the things that they are used to or want you to say, you might end up on your own. But then it's a decision of, is it better to be alone or to be around people that are constantly, you know, throwing judgment at you and shame and guilting you. You know, you have to decide, is your mental health able to handle it or not?
I mean, but that's the thing. Like, I feel like in our society, it's translated into a way, because I think we were talking about this earlier, and I told you, like, we live in a culture that like thrives on shame, or it's really heavily based in shame. So it's forced most people to live double lives, because they and that's our next point that we're going to get into, but it really affects their identity. Like, even actually I had a question for you, and I don't know if I should ask it now.
Do it.
But was there ever like an instance or like this moment in your life where you feel like shame impacted your identity?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah?
I think we're gonna get personal today.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had spoken to someone, and we were talking, and basically, you know, it was a marriage thing. Like, you know, he wanted to marry me, but our main disagreement was that we grew up really differently. So he came from a really strict religious background, and I came from a religious background, but I think, you know, my mom is Turkish, so Islam, you know,
less conservative, let's say.
It's less conservative in the traditional Arabic sense.
Yeah.
For Turks, she's quite conservative, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, and I grew up outside, and you know, my family is, religion is very personal to them. You know, there's not really like a push. It's not like all of us must do it the same way. And I think
as it should be.
As it should be, yeah. I'm happy with how I grew up. Alhamdulillah. Like I can't complain.
No, it's great. Like that you're aware that you're fortunate.
Yeah,
you know?
no, for sure.
Yeah.
Compared to what you went through, I'm super fortunate with that. I didn't live in that community at all. But that's the thing, is because I came from outside, what I deemed as like normal, and my relationship with, you know, like how I dress and how I act and who I'm friends with, is very different to the way he would interpret that, you know. And I think he shamed me a little bit.
Yeah,
for
I remember that.
the way I dressed,
yes,
the way I spoke to people, how friendly I was with everyone.
Yeah, I got goosebumps just now thinking about it. No, because I think a lot of times, like, your friends see, because obviously when you're in it, it's hard to be objective.
Yeah.
So I remember you and I had this discussion, and I was like asking all these questions, and you were telling me things, and I was like, okay, it seems like you're giving up a lot of yourself.
Yeah.
What makes you yourself?
And more
for
than
this
that,
person.
I felt ashamed.
Yeah.
You know,
You changed the way you dress.
I changed a lot about my lifestyle, the way I dressed, you know, the way I behaved around people, just because all of a sudden I felt a bit naked, you know. And that's the thing with shame. The feeling of shame, I think, is really, you feel stripped, you feel naked, you feel sort of inadequate.
Yeah.
And I felt that way just being outside of my home. And I would look at people, and I could think just of his reaction, you know. I'd be like, he wouldn't approve this, he wouldn't like that, he would shame this person.
Yeah.
I think that was really difficult for
me. I remember
me.
I asked you recently when I was like, do you think if you had ended up with him, you would still be friends with me?
We wouldn't be.
And then you mentioned that he knew of me, and he was like, I don't like her, disapproving. And honestly, I see that it's a theme with a lot of, so I've seen, especially my girlfriends who got married younger, they allow their husbands to dictate who they can stay friends with and who they can't. Because they shame them. They're like,
people think, how does he control her? He doesn't control her.
Yeah.
He makes her feel ashamed.
Yeah. And he'd be like, this girl has a very bad reputation, and I will not allow you to be with her because,
it'll lessen your value.
And I can't have my wife being associated with someone like that. And it's horrible. Obviously, that's a very misogynistic view.
This did not last. We clearly did not get married. Like, this was not my match. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with having differing point of views. I think what's wrong is to shame someone.
That's what it is, exactly.
He could have had these point of views. He could have had these ideas, but I think shaming someone and making me feel ashamed, it was just unnecessary, because it is damaging to people.
It really is.
And if that was just like a person that was passing in my life, like it wasn't like, this is not my husband, this is not my brother, this is not my dad. Like, I can't imagine the impact of a closer person, like a husband, a father, a dad, like an uncle figure that's too close even, you know. I can't imagine the impact that has on you mentally, because you're now used to feeling ashamed. You're probably feeling ashamed for everything you're doing. You're walking around feeling inadequate, and you're probably used to that so much that you are now shaming people without realizing it.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. And that's actually the case most of the times. Like, people who shame, which is most people, they're ashamed. So they project their shame.
It's hereditary almost, you know? You've been shamed. You're now ashamed. You're shaming.
Yeah. And everybody's like living a double life, and they're keeping everything on the down low. But then when they're out in public, they're literally hiding in plain sight. And that's what we were talking about earlier when I was telling you, like, there are people who are hiding in plain sight, and they pretend like that they're like holier than thou. Like, they're like,
it's always the ones, you know, that have such a large moral compass on everything, that behind all of that morality, is morality a word?
Yeah.
There's something hiding, you're making up for it.
Yeah.
Because I think people that are truly happy and accepting, they're not judging, they're not saying ape, they're saying, like, live and let live.
Yeah. Going back to what you were saying earlier, so obviously now that I'm more comfortable talking about my marriage.
Hold on. You mean your previous marriage?
My previous marriage. It got really bad towards the end. So I was married for 3 years. And before we got married, also fun fact, I was a muhajir.
She wore
I am
the
just
veil.
spilling
Today,
in this podcast. I'm just like,
excuse me. I think today we're both flooding.
So I was muhajir, but
do you never say muhajjaba? It's always muhajjab.
No, it's a muhajir. And a niqabi is a munaqab.
Is this the you invent this? Did you invent this?
No, I don't think so. I heard it somewhere and I use it. I love it.
Munaqabib.
Munaqabib. Instead of munaqaba, she's a munaqabib. And I'm a muhajir. I love my muhajir and munaqabibs.
I love it because I can't say muhajjaba anymore. It has some muhajir.
So I was a muhajir, and
story time.
Yeah. And right before we got married, his mom wears abaya. And I'm like, okay, no hate or anything, but that's not for me. And I don't even when I was a muhajir, I hated wearing a abaya. It was just not my style.
Yeah.
And my hijab was very
Shador.
What does that mean?
Shador. Iranians.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wear the veil, very. They do it. I think similar to a lot of Saudis. Where it's like.
Yeah, I was very. I want to say lenient, with the way I dressed and my hijab. I wasn't. My family wasn't too conservative.
Impressed.
Not impressed.
Oh, okay.
They weren't. No. They were fine. They didn't really give me a lot of shit flack for the way I dressed. So I saw his mom. Obviously, it was a arranged marriage, if you can't tell it by this point. I was young. I was 23. Okay,
doesn't count.
23, divorced by 26.
Doesn't count. You weren't married, basically. You were never married.
I actually, a while ago, I completely forgot about it, and I remember I was having a conversation with my sister, literally, and I was like, I'm so married. I'm so glad I never got married young. And she looks at me. She's like, are you crazy? She's like, you got married and divorced. What's wrong with you? I was like, oh my God, yeah, I forgot.
Did you just completely black out?
Yeah, blacked out.
Makes sense.
But anyway, so I remember seeing his mom and I was like, okay, I need to make it clear. So I told him, I was like, look, this is how I dress. I love nail polish. I'm always my nails are always painted. I love my arm candy.
It's your version of
It's my version of the hijab. And it works for me. So I was like, this is how I dress. Take it or leave it. And he's like, no, it's fine. I'm okay with it. And then 3 or 4 months into the marriage, that's when he started wanting to control me more and the way I dress. And obviously it was also...
And he would just say, obviously.
He would say worse stuff.
Okay.
When you were talking, it reminded me of that. And he would say, you're stupid because you don't know how to dress like a modest woman. And he would say things like... I don't want to, he was so scared of me getting pregnant because he was like, I don't want my son to come into this world and see his mom looking like this. And basically he was trying to shame me for the way I looked and the way I dressed and the way I carried myself. And towards the end, I was like, this is not the vibe. It's not it. And, we would argue all the time, and my mom was like, okay, keep trying, this is the last time. And it didn't get better. And he literally would call me names because I wasn't dressing the way that he wanted to. And he literally at some point he was like, even a abaya is not covering you, is not going to cover you enough. He's like, I want you to walk around like a tent. So literally he just wanted to just cover me up because I don't know, like it really is heavily rooted in shame. You know what I mean? Like I think he would have been ashamed in front of his family if they saw me, you know, act or dress or present myself in a certain way. I'm sure his mom was shaming him.
I think probably also, so you said it right, his mom was shaming him. And I think
no, 100%. I know for a fact that she was constantly shaming him. Like,
but he
be
must
a
have
man.
seen his dad shame his mom. No,
the irony of the situation is that in his parents' marriage, his mom was the more dominant one.
So she would shame the dad.
I don't know if she would shame the dad, but the dad was
I do
super
believe
quiet.
that shame is like, I mean, this might be like a big thing, but I think shame is hereditary. If you grew up being shamed or seeing a parent shame or shame you, then it becomes like normal behavior.
But that goes back to the culture as a whole shaming you.
Yeah, true.
So it doesn't have to necessarily be something that you experience at home. You live in a culture that is based heavily
You're
in
bathing
shame.
in
We've seen it in marriage, like when
Yeah.
they decide to get married, for example, if your family disapproves of the person
you wanna be
who
with.
you want to be with. And we've seen so many cases where people have been together for years and the family's against it, and then they don't end up being together. Like at the end of the day, is your family going to live with you in the same home?
Who's sleeping next to the person?
Exactly. And then they end up marrying someone to please their family, and they're
they
not in love.
cheat
And
on
they
the
cheat.
person, and so now you're bringing shame on your last name. You're a cheater.
Yeah.
You're harming the person you married,
And they just hide around.
and I mean, that's insane. And I think the mental, we've seen it with people we know, the mental, you know, the toll it takes on you, it becomes incredibly difficult after a while to be around those people, because
Of course.
they're so used to the double life that they don't know what hat they're putting on.
Exactly. It's,
You know, it gets
gives
confusing
you
for them.
anxiety
Yeah.
because you're like hiding. It
Oh no, I
affects you.
can't be seen there doing this because then my family will. What are you saying?
Yeah. So it gets
So we can't be
heavy.
seen outside because
Yeah.
your family is probably going to see you being with a bunch of people that you're no longer associating with because you married someone that you're supposed to be marrying and you're not even happy.
Exactly.
It's so confusing.
I'm just gonna say one story. So I had a friend, like obviously she told me this story like 2 years ago, and I don't know like all the details, and I'm not sure of like the
I just love the fact that I'm sitting here being like, who is it?
Yeah.
you
No,
gonna
you
tell
don't
me?
know them. You don't know them. But basically, so this friend was telling me a story about her friend. And basically, she's like, this friend wanted to see a therapist. And I think she was Italian or European or someone. And she was like this really known therapist. And he really wanted to go see her. And so he finally books a session with this therapist. And she, after like, I think a few sessions, diagnoses him with multiple personality disorder. I don't know if I told you the story. Yeah. And so this guy was like, what? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like,
insane.
This is insane, blah, blah, blah. And so he comes back to, I think, Kuwait. I'm not sure of the details. Like, I'm probably telling the story wrong, but the gist of it basically is that he comes back to Kuwait and then sees, oops, my phone's not on silent.
So professional.
So basically he comes back to Kuwait and starts seeing a local therapist, and then tells her about the diagnosis that he received. And then she's like, any person from the region who sees a therapist that is not aware of our culture and the way we navigate things here would diagnose us with multiple personality disorder, because they don't know how many masks we have to wear because we're constantly wearing different masks. And the mental or the damage that has on our mental health is so bad. Like, it's huge. And we're not like, people don't talk about it enough, but I've been seeing it. It's so prominent these days. Like we see it all the time with our friends. Anxiety, like issues with their identity.
And then end up offloading. You know, they think every hangout is a therapy session, and unfortunately, obviously we're there for our friends, but if it becomes just me sitting around listening to you and your problems, and that's the whole friendship.
Exactly.
And I'm just a therapist on top of your therapist.
And they're constantly stressed around you, and then you don't absorb that stress and anxiety. And
at what point are we being friends? I'm your therapist now. That's it. That's our relationship. I'm listening to you and the struggles you have, and the struggles you have are mainly due to the fact that you're leading a double life and you don't even want to stop leading that life.
yeah. And it's like, honestly, like I feel like people like you and I, like, obviously we get a lot of flack because we, as much as we can, try to be authentic.
Yeah.
And we try to live our truth. And obviously I'm not living fully like my truth because I respect the culture that I'm in.
Same.
But I'm not gonna sit here and put on
A
this
show
other
of someone that I'm not.
Exactly.
I'm gonna try to
and
be as
create
authentic
an
as I
impression
am.
that I'm this person, and you know what I mean? No, I am gonna be as true to myself as I possibly can without offending people. I mean, just me being myself. I know, like, you and I experienced this, like just us being authentic to ourselves and living our truth can be offensive to some
it pisses people off.
It pisses people off. Exactly.
But you know, like, it's, I mean, I think for us, we've been through enough that this kind of stuff is really like in and, you know, one ear and out the other.
But I remember, like, recently I did tell you that I started like allowing people's judgment to affect me.
I mean, there's a limit. There's a limit.
And I started listening to what people say, like, about the way I dress or the way I carry myself, and the way I look, and, you know, like, ayib. And then I had like incidents with my family, my extended family, trying to have like interventions with me because of the way I live my life. And
sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I know it's serious. It's
no, it is
the
funny.
way
Honestly,
they behave.
I'm hilarious.
Just like, what is she doing?
It's hilarious. And I thank God, like, again, I am really fortunate because my brothers are not misogynistic in a way where they're like, no, we're going to have to tell my sister, like, she needs to, carry the family name better, blah, blah, blah. You saw how damaging it was for me, because I was like, I had a moment where I was self-reflecting and I was like, maybe I'm the problem. And I
you
was
went on a
spiraling into depression. And then I was like, no, this is not who I am.
No, that's the thing, is I think at the end of the day, everything is important in the grand scheme of things, but nothing is as important as you and your well-being. And if living your truth means sometimes you have to remove yourself from a situation, a place, people, whatever, do it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it.
Have you ever had moments like that where you did allow people? I mean, the story that you said earlier, but other than that,
I've had the luck of coming from a super accepting family where my mom, dad, my uncles, my grandma, everyone was always so supportive. But one of my uncle's wives, one day said something saying, oh, you know, she comes from outside, like, essentially alluding to the fact that I come from outside, so I'd be loose or something, you know, like my morals would be like shoddy, like I would probably do something crazy.
That's the worst thing.
And my mom said, no. My mom's like nipped it in the bud. Mom said, no, because she knows what I'm like.
Yeah.
She's like, no, what my daughter does outside the house, she does in the house. My daughter doesn't have a double life. We raised her.
Yes.
All of us.
Yes.
So you don't say that about my daughter. And it's true. I dress the way I do. I act the way I do. I do things I do. I'm, creating a podcast with my best friend, saying the same things I say at home. And you know what? My family backs me.
Exactly.
As they should. And my family, you know what? They actually, respectfully, they did not back the beliefs that this person that was, coming in for marriage was saying. And they were like, those are not our beliefs.
Yeah.
So Mia, you got to decide, do you accept these beliefs or not? And I think that, to me, is a blessing. And it's the most important thing, the fact that I have like that support group.
It really is. Yeah. You said a very good point where you said that she thought you were you had loose morals based on the way you dress, and I feel like that is the case a lot of times. Like, even with me, I think you and I have the same problem where, because I guess we dress less conservative than the culture here maybe allows, so people automatically assume that we have loose morals, and nothing pisses me off more than that.
Yeah, especially because I think you and I were quite bad. Like, we may dress more provocatively than people here expect, but we are not talking to people at all.
I'm not.
Like, I'm not giving you the time of
and
day.
I think people are so shocked.
I know, and they're mad. Like, no, you look this way. You should be doing all these things. I'm not doing any of it.
No.
I don't want it. I'm dressing for me.
Yeah,
I'm dressing for the girl in front of the mirror.
But what kind of advice would you give to people who are dealing with, being shamed or are surrounded by shame and don't know where to start? Like,
I mean, you need to, first of all, if it's your family, you can't really divorce your family. It's quite difficult. If it's a relationship, you have to consider what's more important, your mental health or pleasing this person and their ideals. If it's family, you have to try and do in an ear out the other. I mean, if it takes moving, try and move, get out. Just the most important thing is you do whatever you need to do to not be in that environment or not have it affect you.
It's not easy. Like I'm not gonna lie. So as someone who has somewhat gone through it, like yes, I have been fortunate where my family has been supportive in certain ways, but I'm not gonna lie. Like they were also kind of against the way I presented myself in public, because they were like, you know, you can live your life, you can do whatever, but just don't be too public about it, you know. But now it's like it's gotten better. I think we've found like a nice middle ground. But one thing I will say is that you are going to have a very resilient mindset, because it doesn't come easy. No. You're going to have a lot of bad days.
You have bad months.
That, like you're going to have, sometimes your family is all going to like stand against you.
Sometimes you're going to have to be alone.
Yeah.
But you
have to be okay with being alone. And that's the thing. But at the end of the day, when you like, when all of that passes, it is so rewarding, because you are able to be yourself. Obviously, I'm not saying like do it in the way where it's provocative and you're burning bridges. No. Like don't burn bridges, but I would say start with your group of friends. Find a group of friends that are not judgmental, that are accepting, exactly,
and that are encouraging you. Oh my god, I hate that.
I know, but really, it has to be safe space. Essentially, because you don't want to be surrounded by friends who are constantly like, hey,
and
like,
if they're not doing it to you, you don't want to be around people that do it to others, because you won't be able to be yourself. So surround yourself with people that are like-minded. I think it goes without saying, just like-minded.
Exactly. And I think for people who are like us, like third culture kids, I would say
hang out with other third culture kids only.
Hang out with no, not only, but I would say explore cultural hybridity. Because like we were talking earlier, like when you merge two cultures, or like the different cultures that you've experienced, it literally like makes everything richer. Like it's supposed to improve. Like it's
globalization. It's literally cultural hybridity is globalization. You know, like mixing cultures. You know, and it's the same here, right? Like so the white people that grew up here, a lot of times they're even more traditional than I am. But you know what? We get on because it's really funny. You know, it's like they teach me their point of view of like being Middle Eastern, even though they're not Middle Eastern at all. And I sort of remind them of like what's outside, and it's fun. I mean, my best friends are not all Kuwaiti at all, or all, actually a lot of them are third culture kids, obviously by default. But connect with people that are from other backgrounds, learn about other backgrounds, learn about other cultures, enrich your social circle. Do not stick in a place that you feel you're forced to because you come from a certain background. You know, if people say, no, you are from this background, this is your religion, this is that, you should only be around that, I disagree. Learn about the rest of the world.
But also
you'll come to accept yourself more.
Exactly. And that doesn't mean that you're not embracing or appreciating. Actually, I feel like it pushes you to embrace it more. Like at least for me, like I had this I guess like growing up, it was hard to navigate, because it was like you know, like we said in episode 1 when we were talking about third culture kids, like I, you know, loved the culture, I loved the heritage, but also I wanted to bring in, you know, or I was heavily influenced by other cultures, like American culture, British culture, like universal culture, pop culture. And, you know, like there's this kind of shame that if you are, you know, like it just immersed in that, then you've turned your back on your culture and your heritage. But that's not true.
You're like, evolving. By the way, the culture's evolved. We no longer, most of us no longer sleep in tents. We no longer ride camels and horses. We use German cars. We have phones made in China.
Exactly.
You know, we've integrated into other things. We literally have McDonald's and Starbucks on every corner of this country. Like God knows.
And like I was telling you, like we cannot live in history. We are making history. Exactly. We can't just live in the past and be like, no, we have to hold on to this, or else we would still be living in tents and riding camels. You know what I mean? But let's take the beautiful things, shed light on those, and like we were talking about earlier, and that when you like blend all of those cultures with your experience and all the influences, richer.
You become the richest version of yourself.
Exactly.
You become so much more interesting. You have so much more to add. And I think it just goes without saying, the more you learn about other cultures and you evolve, I think the more you grow within and you come to accept others as much as you accept yourself.
Yeah. So I would say definitely that is one of the things that we should try, is that like explore cultural hybridity. And I think another one is also, I think we have to challenge certain norms.
Yeah.
We definitely
Rock
have
the boat.
to. Don't be afraid
offend
to.
people.
Yeah.
Don't piss people off. That's not, I mean, people will get
Like we
pissed
said,
off.
don't burn bridges.
Yeah. People will get pissed off. People will be offended. But yeah, rock the boat. Honestly, a lot of times when people tell me like, oh, you're not married? Instead of saying no, why do you care? Even though a lot of times I really just want to say, yeah, no, why do you care? I say, no, but I just moved here and I just started a job and I'm a lawyer and I'm actually an international development lawyer. So it's really interesting. And I sort of reshift the conversation to that. And people will try to bring it back to marriage and say, hey, right now, I haven't found the person that, I want to build a life with. If I do, it'll be great. But for now, I'm doing this, and that. And not adhering to the cultural norm of running around and looking for a husband, like knocking on all the doors, it's not for me, but it does not make me less of a person in this culture. I'm still a Kuwaiti woman. I'm a modern Kuwaiti woman.
Exactly.
And I'm following the path that I'm meant to follow, not the path that society is trying to push on me.
Yeah. And honestly, like one thing that I started doing is like so before I would be ashamed, like when people would ask me this question, like, oh, like you're
because
divorced.
it is shameful. We haven't touched on that today, but there is it's a hype to be divorced.
Yeah. Oh my God. That is another story. Cause I struggled with that too. Like I was so ashamed to tell people that I'm divorced.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I haven't even said it publicly until now.
Yeah.
But I noticed like one thing that helped me as well is like, when these conversations happen, you shouldn't just like either stay quiet or agree or like just, just like let it
Meshi.
It's meshi basically. But
which I'm, sometimes I'm guilty of just whatever. You're gonna say whatever.
No, I'm very vocal. Like I even started doing it like in my family gatherings when people would say things, and obviously like people here have very strong opinions, and I honestly would not just sit quiet. I would say my opinion and I wouldn't be scared to say it, because at the end of the day, you said something earlier where you were like, the happiest people or the most confident people are people who don't care.
Yeah. I mean, I don't meshi just for the fun of it. I meshi because I just don't care. Honestly, like I think I have a problem where sometimes I should speak up more, but I'm like,
something else that I think helps me is that like when you don't allow people to shame you. So people are like, oh my God, you're like, yeah, what are you gonna do about it? Yeah, like this is what I am. Like, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh, she's just crazy.
Yeah. But we love that.
You can say the craziest things.
We lean into it.
When you stop caring, people automatically are like, oh, she doesn't care, so there's no point in shaming her.
It's like bullying. When you don't care or you laugh at the joke before, like they laugh at you, or you turn into an even bigger joke, they can't do anything. That is why I am funny. I got bullied so bad as a kid that I just stopped caring entirely. Yeah. Like I will make fun of myself before you make fun of me.
Honestly, one tactic that I use that is hilarious is that when someone tries to shame me, I shame them for shaming me, and it works. Like it's such like an Inception kind of thing.
Yes.
But you're like, oh, so you're shaming me for being this. Everybody, look, this person's shaming. And then you start shaming them for shaming.
Or like, I think something that's really crazy, I've realized if you make people repeat themselves, they can't do it. If they're bullying or shaming or something. This is a pro tip, okay? What do you say? That makes people think they can't do it, or
they can't repeat what they just said,
or say, oh, that's a very interesting thing to say out loud. That's a very interesting.
I love that. That is your line, definitely.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting thing to say out loud.
So, but I actually got that from my favorite podcast, Girls Gotta Eat.
Yeah,
shameless promo for the favorite podcast. But someone said say that, and I have milked that. Yeah, I've said that to so many people. Like, oh wow, that's a very interesting thing to say out loud. People feel so stupid. Honestly, if someone says "Abe" or shames you, make them feel stupid back. Traumatize them
Like,
right back.
Time.
Yeah.
Oh, so I think it's time for us to wrap up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically,
In conclusion, if someone traumatizes you, traumatize them back.
exactly,
That's the
traumatize
moral.
them back. Be resilient. Try to explore more cultures.
And if you
find a
can,
good
get
support.
out.
Yeah,
Get out.
If it is really bad, I think there's an extreme where it's really, really, really bad.
No, but
that's when you should get out.
If it's really like ruining your life and you're not okay and therapy isn't helping, seek therapy. Always seek therapy.
Obviously seek therapy. One of them is definitely seek therapy. Turn to your friends who you trust and you know that are not going to be judging you. And like you said, like if it's too extreme, it's too bad, get out. I'm not saying that's the first thing that you should go
that's
to.
The last resort.
That's the last resort, obviously, but try everything else.
Yeah.
Try to do it without burning bridges. Also, just because like, you know, people are part of your culture are shaming you doesn't mean that you should turn your back on the culture.
No.
Try to
see, and it's because it's so easy to just hate everything about the culture when you're being shamed. But take the best and leave the rest.
Exactly.
Wow, that.
And عيب عليكم. If you did not make it this far, عيب عليكم.
If you don't like, comment, subscribe, share.
عيب. عيب. So go comment, like, subscribe.
The epitome of not practicing what you preach ever. Gives the best advice, cannot take it. Sorry for another day.
Yeah. All right, guys. I guess that's our time.
See you next week.
Love you. Bisous, bisous.
Bye.
Bye.